Oh, man.
We're live.
Okay, are we ready, folks?
Looks like it.
Alrighty, good evening. Welcome, everybody, to the February 3rd, 2025 Genoa Township Board meeting. And with that, I would like to call the meeting to order at 6:30. If you'd like, please join me for the invocation. Heavenly Father, we ask that you help us commit to trust and collaboration, that we may grow as a team to serve our residents. We pray for you to enlighten our minds and bless the conversations that follow with goodwill, sincerity, and truth. Help us see and understand the issues we face with clarity and charity, and give us the wisdom to find solutions and the courage to see them through. We ask for your mercy on those recently lost in airborne accidents, and pray for the comfort and healing of friends and family left behind. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can I get a roll call?
Turkey. Walker.
Here.
Ryber.
Here.
Hunt.
Here.
Spiker.
Here.
Deaton here. Susie.
Here.
Bovarder.
Here.
Okay, all present. And for anyone unaware, Kelly Van Marter, our township manager, is down there on the end. With that,
You want to
Can I
introduce
introduce
Joe?
Joe then?
well, I guess I could introduce Joe. He's hiding down there. So this is our township attorney, Joe Seward. Thank you. So with that, I will open the call to the public at 6:32.
Deb Beatty.
Good evening, everyone. You know me by now, Deb Reedy, Pineview Trail. I wanted to discuss that discussion at the last meeting on the printer issue. I think in all the discussion, there was a lot discussed, but I think that having that gentleman here that supported the Sharp printer package, I believe, I think having him as a Genoa resident, very knowledgeable, and trying to work with the township to make everything apples to apples, let's say, has value. And I don't think that was even looked at as valuable. But the other thing was how that discussion ended. And it ended with one of the board members still having questions about parts of that package. Those questions were not yet answered, and then it was immediately moved to proceed with the motion. The motion was seconded, and then that was voted on. And if I'm reading correctly, Robert's rules say that if the board wants to end a discussion, they must first make a motion to end a discussion and have a vote on that. And that did not happen. So I just want to bring those 2 points up, that I think a couple times this Robert's rule thing has not been followed, and maybe it should be done better. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
You're welcome.
Therese Cremonti.
Good evening. I'm very happy to be here, and actually this is my assistant, Christy Wahoski. So my name is Therese Cremonti. I am the Livingston County Emergency Manager. She is my assistant emergency manager. The reason we're here this evening is to let you know that we are here to help. It is simply an introduction. You are going to have come before you a couple plans, one sooner than later. Emergency management is a very interesting discipline, and overarching, we're here in case of emergencies or disasters that occur. We do have those throughout Livingston County, luckily. We've had really exciting things happen, small impacts. But it's our office that helps jurisdictions plan for those, to include the county itself. Now, we have 20 jurisdictions within Livingston County, and I derive my authority from Act 390 of 1976. So it's the Michigan Emergency Management Act, if you care to look at that. In that act, it says that any local jurisdiction within a county, city, or township that has over 10,000 residents is required to have an emergency support plan, which will coincide with the county plan, wherever that should be. Now, you have 20,575 people per the last census, so you fall within that category. You are one of 9 of our jurisdictions within this county. That seems very daunting, I know, but we're here to help. So, the good news is your current emergency operations support plan is current. And once they are approved and signed, they're good for 4 years, then we look at it, we revamp it. But any time that there is a change of leadership, it needs to be readopted and re-signed by the current leader. And you've had that changeover. So your new support plan that's viable was done this last fall, but you've had a leadership change. So it's going to come before you again for adoption and for signature. And we're here to let you know that if you have any questions, please get with us. Now I've been here in this county doing this job for 9 years. This is my 3rd round with Genoa Township support plan. So this is number 3 that I've worked on with you. And then we do it as easily as we can for you. We would try to make it no fuss, no muss. So the number 1 person that we work with in Genoa Township is Duffy Rajowski, your assessor. So she is kind of our partner. She's the one that helps us get signatures. So you may hear from Duffy. And we're just letting you know that so that you're not surprised or scratching your head and asking, what is this? The second plan is our hazard mitigation plan. Now, you won't see that for about another 2 years because it's currently still viable and in play. 2 years ago, in 2022, 3 years ago now, you adopted that. And that's a wonderful thing because when you adopt the county hazard mitigation plan, which is available for you to view, it's on our website. Please look at it. But when you adopt it, it opens up a lot of opportunities for you as a township. If you have any questions that go beyond, the clerk has my card. Please feel free to contact us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Linda Fire.
I'm going to, I hope, make this pretty short. I'm addressing, once again, that property on Latson, 7 acres, that allegedly has had a request to be rezoned. I would urge you to turn down that. No gas station, fast food, convenience store would be appropriate for that small location. Lots of other potential exciting uses. So I'm not going to prolong my speech because I don't have anything more pertinent to say. But I just urge you to seriously consider not going along with that idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Denise Palisello.
Good evening, Denise Policello, 4200 Sweet Road. First of all, thank you to the new Township Board for your efforts at communication outreach and accessibility, particularly as it concerns the meetings being on video now for folks who cannot make it to the meetings personally. And as far as the town halls, please, please have more. You got 50 people to a town hall meeting on probably the worst night of the year as far as weather, and it looked like it was midnight. So I think that speaks for itself as far as interest. Regarding tonight's agenda, as I understand it, the proposal from Giffords-Webster is only regarding the sub-Latson area. I don't agree that that's really an appropriate survey or master plan focus. The entire master plan should be reviewed for the entire township. A township is not just one area. And I think that the interest in addressing the master plan should go far beyond the South Latson sub-area and go into what we want to be as a township. So please consider sending that back to Giffords-Webster for a more comprehensive proposal. And just by what I can see from the agenda item itself, I don't see that we would need a mailed community survey because that's always less than 6%. You're never going to get a good return on your investment there, and an outreach website is not necessary. That may reduce the cost. As it relates to the application or the introduction for first reading of the zoning ordinance amendment, I have to confess that I'm a little confused about that. The zoning ordinance, section 22 on amendments, has two potentials for amending, okay? One is a rezoning amendment of a parcel, which is what was brought in December before the Planning Commission and denied. And the other is an amendment to the official zoning map of the township. Both of those are separate things, and they each require a public hearing before the Planning Commission before they come here. The Planning Commission has never heard an application or ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the township for this parcel. So I'm really confused about why that's being introduced right now. I looked back at the Planning Commission meeting, public hearing and the minutes and everything from December to make sure I wasn't going crazy, and it does look like two completely separate applications. I understand the purpose of it. I'm just saying I don't understand why the township would consider a zoning ordinance amendment to the official township zoning map that has not been brought before the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
Tracy Pardiak.
Good evening. I'm going to talk also about the Latson PUD. Mr. Wyatt was turned down on the same application in September because the application was so sloppily put together, I assume as a result of his haste to cram this through before his chums were ousted. So we found ourselves again listening to him, trying to force his plan through at the December 9th Planning Commission meeting, and once again the flaws in his plan were glaringly obvious to everyone. Commissioner Roush, after listening to the comments and concerns of the other Planning Commission members and the residents, made 4 separate motions to deny the request. Those denials were based on ordinance violations such as the property only being 7.7 acres instead of the minimum 20 acres required by the zoning ordinance, the proposed property uses not being compatible with the surrounding zoning and land influences, the requirement that the uses be complementary to, not in competition with, surrounding businesses, that there has been no evidence of a demonstrated need for the proposed uses, the fact that the I-96 corridor has always intersected the community with commercial being north and residential being south, so much so that at the present time there are only 2 commercial properties, Mount Brighton and Jonas, that are south of the expressway. And the belief that, and I quote Mr. Roush, there is a significant work to be done in redevelopment and attention to be done north of 96 to make sure we're putting our best foot forward in the commercial properties we already have. And that doesn't even cover Mr. Wyatt's request for a road to nowhere, which was heavily discussed. At that December 9th Planning Commission meeting, the argument was made by Wyatt and the Planning Commission chairman that he has spent a lot of money so far on architects and other things, so his plans should be approved. Spending a ton of money developing non-compliant plans does not justify approving those plans. If he came to you and said he spent millions designing a toxic waste dump, would you really say, oh, he spent lots of money designing a toxic waste dump? Well, by golly, we should approve it. What an absurd argument. Why would we even entertain this request? So far as I can tell, there have been zilch, 0 changes to Mr. Wyatt's plans since December, unless that parcel somehow magically nearly tripled in size for starters. What makes him think it should be approved other than his arrogance? I was going to say he didn't even bother to put lipstick on this pig before bringing it back to you, but this thing isn't even a pig. It's much uglier. It's a wild boar.
Thank you, Tracy.
Janine.
Good evening. I'm going to be short. I'm just going to agree with the previous 2 or 3 people voicing opposition to the rezoning on the east side of Latson Road between Beck Road and the rail line. So I just wanted to also put my vote in. They've already given a lot of good reasons. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Janine.
Yeah, no, you can go
Yeah,
ahead and
Colleen, you
put it
can
on
go
the
forward.
Was there anybody else?
Good evening, Colleen Quinn, 4042 Brookstone Court. I just want to reiterate what the previous speakers have said and urge you to vote against rezoning from country estates to the ICPUD. And I've spoken at several meetings, and I'm still interested to know what the legal findings were if this PUD or this agreement was even still valid. So, but I would encourage you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Is that all?
That's it.
Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, I will close the call to the public at 6:45 PM. With that, everyone had a chance to review the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion regarding that.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a move. I have a second. Any discussion further? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same? Motion carried. With that, we will move on, and has everyone had a chance to review the regular agenda? With that, I'll entertain a motion on the agenda.
A motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same? Motion carried. So, action item number 3 is the consideration of a request for approval of a proposal from Giffords Webster to update the Township Master Plan with a special study of the South Latson Road area, including public outreach website, community survey, and open house event at a cost not to exceed $29,600 from the General Fund, Planning and Zoning, Contractual Services Fund, number 101-701-802-000.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to introduce Jill Baum with Giffords Webster, who is here this evening to answer any questions that you have. This was a directive given at the December 16th meeting to take a look at the master plan, specifically as it related to kind of changing public interest in the South Latson area. Although I think if there are other things identified as part of that master plan process that we wish to change, certainly that is something we can look at the time. But the base quote is $18,400, and then there were 3 different community input, community engagement options put forth. The number of 29,006 in the agenda is to go all in, but we certainly can pick and choose the parts of public engagement that we're most interested in. And I think I'll turn it over to Jill to maybe just give a small introduction.
Do I have to do anything else?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. All right.
Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and meet with you today. I know you're new board, and so you haven't been through this master plan process before. So I'm delighted to be here and explain the scope of work, hear from you. It was good being here for some of the public input, the public comment at the beginning, just to get a sense for how engaged the community already is in this area, clearly, and concerns over some of the ways in which we do outreach to the community as well. So I will be happy to just review this, or I can answer questions. I can start at the beginning, and it's up to you.
Would you like to hear a brief presentation and then we'll ask questions?
Yes. Yeah.
If you would, please.
All right. So as you may or may not know, communities who do zoning are required to have a master plan adopted in their community. So the master plan is our 10 to 15-year vision for what we want the community to look like over time. And when we have that, that's our blueprint. That's our guiding policy, if you will, for making land use decisions. So I know you've got another item right after this one that's going to be a consideration for making some changes. So you look at your zoning ordinance and you look at your master plan for that guidance. The zoning ordinance then is based on the master plan. So we have to have a good solid master plan, and when we do and when we're challenged, as sometimes we are, on land use decisions, if we can say, no, we've got a good solid zoning ordinance and it's based on our current and up-to-date master plan, then you should be in pretty good shape, assuming that everything else is in order. The Michigan Planning Enabling Act, which is our enabling authority, our public rules for doing planning in the state of Michigan, says that communities need to have a review of their master plan every 5 years. So as you know, their last plan was adopted in 2021. So we would have some time if we were just doing a regular review. But there are times when we say, you know what, we might need to have a little bit of an extra study here. We've got something that's coming up that's either a conflict or we have a new opportunity. We might have something happening in another community. We might have some changes either internally or externally to the community where we say, you know, we don't need to wait 5 years. We need to take a look at this now. We may have a focused area or some kind of a need, such as you do here with this. So looking at that, we update your some of the existing conditions. There won't be a lot to update. We didn't do it too long ago. Working with the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission is the entity that's responsible for preparing the master plan and adopting that, whereas the Township Board then is the legislative body. So when Planning Commission works on their master plan, if they work on some zoning language, they make recommendations on that, but the actual legal framework is up to you for your approval, your action. When we do master planning, we always like to get community input. That helps us because the residents and people who work in the community know they're the experts. They know the community the best. It's also helpful when we can get people to understand the process, and as the Planning Commission makes some decisions, as the plan becomes adopted, then the community has some understanding. It's not to say that they'll necessarily all 100% of them agree on 100% of everything in your plan, but they'll be aware of it. They'll have had their opportunity to be participating in the process. And so hopefully when decisions are made, people will understand that foundation, that background. That also helps when we want to make other changes, like zoning changes or there's development that comes in. If it's consistent with our master plan, which was an open process, then hopefully, again, not necessarily everybody's going to be happy with everything, but hopefully they will feel like, okay, the community made their statements, the Planning Commission, Township Board took action based on all the information that they had. The reason we have so many options listed is because we don't have one straightforward way to reach the communities anymore. Not everybody can come to a meeting. We used to be able to hold meetings and people would show up. And now we hold meetings and people are busy. They have a lot of other things that are weighing on them, other commitments. And so to offer people a variety of ways in which they can participate. They can come to Planning Commission meetings. Those are open all the time. They can always come and participate that way. But maybe they don't want to come to a meeting. Maybe they want to just do an online survey, or they want to share some information, or maybe they just want to read about what's going on. That is the online project website where we can put information up there. We can give people the opportunity to respond. The open house is sort of a two-part process. If you were part of the process the last time, this is the room where we had the open house in 2021. Yeah, it was earlier in 2021, where we had different stations. And there were different stations related to different parts of the master plan, some information, and an opportunity to provide input. So we like to do that both ways. We like to offer some of the conditions, the existing conditions, some of the data. We like to offer some of the Planning Commission's discussion or deliberation, and then ask some questions from people who attend. But again, not everybody can come to that at a specific time. So if we make that information available on our website, then people are able to see that information. Or maybe they came to the meeting and they thought, I'm not really sure I understood that. Let me go back online and read that in a little bit more detail before I provide my comments. So that's an option for people too. So those are sort of the basics for the reasons why we have the different variety of input. And then working with the Planning Commission on those items that we outlined in the plan preparation portion, with the goals and objectives, looking at South Latson Road, any changes that need to be made to the future land use map, and then the implementation strategies. And as you know, those are in a matrix in the master plan where we help organize those items and so that they're ready to go for Planning Commission or Township Board action. And then there is a required review period. So we do have some time in section 5A, B, where we have that plan out for review. And that's another requirement from the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, where the plan goes out for review by the community as well as the adjacent communities and reviewing agencies. And that's 63 days for a master plan or 42 days for a plan amendment. So it's just time where we have to wait before we can hold the public hearing, which would come after that, and then Planning Commission adoption, and then Township Board if you choose to do that, and I think you did last time. So that's an overview of the scope, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about that.
I've got a question about the professionally facilitated community open house. Is that one event
That is one event.
for 5,400?
Right, and that's what I was saying. The materials that we prepare for that in-person event, we use typically posters. That information we also share online. So it is the 54, but it also includes that information to be able to go up on, and that takes some time as well to do that. That does typically account for the biggest time effort of preparing community engagement, because all those posters are specific to what the Planning Commission's been talking about, specific to the questions that we have for the community that we would work on with Planning Commission, things that they'd like to know.
Is one event typically enough for that?
You can always add more.
Well,
No, I mean, yes, we've done them, in some communities, we'll have one at the beginning, like a brand new, like, hey, we're doing this kind of, not necessarily like a town hall, but more like an open house kind of format. We find that doing them that way as an open house gets people more in dialogue with each other, and then with us, and with the Planning Commission, and that we get more interesting information from that, rather than a town hall, which we can still do, but that tends to be people getting up and maybe it's like more one-sided, and doing it in an open house it's a lot more back and forth, and people, I think, feel like their questions are answered, that they're heard. Some folks don't like to get up in front of a big crowd of people and say anything in front of a microphone, but they're much more willing to talk to you one-on-one. So that's why we like to do them that way. But certainly if you wanted to do something at the beginning and then do something again later, we can always do those kinds of things. We could do as many kinds of different outreach as you'd like.
so if we did two, one at the beginning and one later on, it'd be 5,400 each.
Yes, I'll just say yes, but the first one would probably be, we could probably work on that one a little bit more, because that would be more of just kind of open-ended questions. We might have things that we could share from the last master plan. We might have some maps that people could draw on. So that one might not be the same as I'm envisioning. Like the second one, the one that we have in here, is much more of reacting to things that we had discussion on with the Planning Commission.
I was just thinking in terms of a early one where there's more input from people to start forming that, and then having one that says, this is what we've kind of come up with, and start tweaking at that point. But I would think that it may require a couple of them.
Like a rough and then a refined?
Yeah.
How many posters are we talking about?
I'm trying to remember how many we had for the last plan. I feel like maybe there were 8 to 10. And then we also bring a couple of staff. So I think the last one we did, there were 3 of our staff that were out here to help moderate, direct people, help them get through the process. And then we also like the Planning Commission to be here if they can. And I think we had some last time too. They can help collect people and talk about the things that, get that dialogue going.
Jill, how long usually are these planning meetings? The town hall portion of them?
Usually, well, when we have them as open houses, and it doesn't matter where we are, we say it's an open house because everybody comes at the beginning. Even though an open house is 10, we encourage people to come and go. And so we would have maybe 2.5 hours of time blocked where people could come and go as they please. But if someone came in right at the beginning or whenever they came in, maybe an hour of their time. Depends on how interested and engaged they are. If they're just like, I just want to know what's going on, they're going to walk around, they're going to say, okay, fine, they could be out of here in 15, 20 minutes. But if they really have a lot of questions, they might be here the whole time.
But for your time, you're looking at probably a 3-hour block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just had an open house like that, and we had over 50 people here, and almost all the discussion was about this, about the master
Okay.
plan.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people had opinions already.
Yeah.
There's a group that's already involved that sends out lots of emails that has a lot of traction. I don't know if we need to spend that kind of money on that.
I think Kevin got that one done for like $35.
I know it, and a lot of people came.
Like
A
some
lot of people
donuts.
came, and almost all of it was about this already. How people already feel and what the plans they want to have for the area is not what's been envisioned.
I do have a question. So the primary survey area, so this quote is based on the primary survey area. What exact, does that comprise only South Latson? Is that South Latson plus the Grand River Corridor?
And under the third?
So, I think that's the whole project is what it would cover. This particular language appears under background research and
yeah.
summary of existing conditions.
Yes, that was in that general area, but we can expand that if.
I'm just not comfortable saying South Latson area being the focus. I think we definitely should not do that. So I'm wondering if that will change the cost if we broaden it out to include a wider area.
I don't think that would be that difficult to expand.
Okay. I don't want to target that specific area.
Right. Let me ask this question, because since this was last done in 2021, it's due to be redone in 5 years. If we focus only on South Latson, that wouldn't reset the clock, correct? And it would still expire in 2026, which isn't far away.
Can I jump in real quick? Because actually, I think there's some confusion about the dates. So we initiated the master plan update in 2021. We actually didn't adopt the master plan until January of 2023. So technically, or I think it's February. Technically, the current master plan is February 2023.
Okay.
But when you look at it, in my experience with when you look at it with an amendment, that does restart the clock. So you've taken a look at your master plan. You're just required to look at it every 5 years. You're not really required to do an update. So every time that you open it and take a look, even if it's just a target sub area, you're still looking at it and giving an update to it. So I do think that would reset.
Right, and if people come with questions about another part of the township, we're not going to say, oh no, we're not talking about that at all. Certainly we want to get, if this is the area that we know people are concerned about, but there could be other things that come up through the process too.
So it's not restricted to South Latson?
No, I think it helps everybody focus in on what we're doing, like this is pretty much what we're going to be looking at. But if the other things come up, then they come up.
Okay, and then we are, says creating an online platform for community engagement. Are we able to build that off of the Juneau.org site that we already maintain, simply because we're kind of working on driving people to that center?
Yeah, well, and it's a good question. And typically we will say, go to the township's website and there'll be a link to ours. We wouldn't have people come directly to us because they don't know what that is. They know, and that's exactly to your point. Like you're trying to build people to come to your township's website. That's where people are used to going. We just have a link from there. And that allows us to keep things updated without relying on or asking staff to do that for us.
Okay.
Now, to address one of the comments on the paper-based surveys, those would only be a backup plan, correct?
Right.
So that's only for people that don't have access to a computer.
We don't want to prevent anybody from participating that way if they'd like to.
But we're not doing mailings.
we wouldn't,
Okay.
no. They, generally, if they come here, they can get it, or,
We'll have them available at the counters.
That was my question. If we don't do mailings, how do we get hard copies into the residents' hands other than mail? They would just have to have enough interest to come here to the township hall. There would be a stack available at a counter. They could take the survey.
I mean, or if someone calls and says, I don't have a computer, or I don't know, I'm not good on computers, we would mail those. Just direct mail.
If we were going to do a direct mailing, I would probably recommend a postcard, giving people information to go to this website and participate in the survey. So if that is something the board wants to do, I think there is a reduced postage option to send a postcard asking folks to participate.
Those
in the
postcards,
survey.
I feel, get lost in the mix of the junk mail. So, I like the backup of the paper.
do you have any other township mailings going out?
Bills.
Yeah, not until.
The next tax bill doesn't go out till July.
Oh.
And our next assessing mailing goes out too soon for this.
Yeah.
Plus, if people have impounds, doesn't the tax bill go to the bank and not the people?
No, every person gets a tax bill.
Okay, it does come to the bill. I knew the assessment notice did.
Yeah.
The bill does
Could
too.
it,
Yep.
could it go onto an MHOG bill?
Those are postcards, so.
And they don't hit just Genoa, like that goes to Marion House.
Oh, this is true. I'm sorry.
I mean, depending on timing, including something with the summer tax bill might be an option.
In February?
That's July.
Oh, July.
That seemed kind of late for me, but.
One question I have, so we did the last open house on November 10th of 2021. It said we got 40 people. And then we had the survey up for a month. We got 285 views and 17 responses. So like, if we do the survey again at $2,700, we'll be paying $10 a person to look at it and $160 a person to get their opinion. That doesn't seem spectacular. Can we bump up our efforts to, and I mean,
Yes.
we certainly can do that, and we
Yes.
are working toward doing that.
Yes,
But we
and we'll
don't.
support you by helping you with language, like we call them blurbs, that you could use to send out if you're using like an e-blast, or if you're going to use, I don't know if you're doing social media, are you doing Facebook? So a little post there. Even with the survey, we could spread out the questions on the survey so that maybe we're asking a few questions like over a month period, but a few each week. So that maybe the shorter questions, shorter survey would be more interesting to people to participate in.
Absolutely. I would hope we could, you know,
20 yeah, 'cause
spruce it up a little to really try to drive
Absolutely.
some more important.
No,
Because
and I will
basically,
tell you that there is
we got
nothing-
57 responses. I
Yes.
don't feel that is enough for 20,500
Right.
people to draw conclusions on.
Yeah, we would have a better turnout at a town hall on our own versus doing something like this.
And the residents are a little more energized now, I mean, in fairness, but it's definitely, you know, I would not be comfortable doing anything based on the opinion of 57 people.
So, to Janine's point and to Candy's point, I mean, I don't know for $5,400 what bigger bang for the buck we're gonna get. I mean, you're gonna ask the same people sort of the same question, just in a different facility. I would expect that unless you have a different group of people, you're gonna kind of get the same feedback we've already gotten. I don't, explain to me the benefit of spending $5,400 instead of 35, or Kevin might put icing on the donuts and it jumps up to $50, you know, I don't know.
Well, I think it depends on the format. So I don't know what what was the format of the engagement meeting that you had?
It would have in essence been, we called it a town hall, but it would have been more of an open house. It was a free dialogue between myself and two of the trustees and the attendees.
And what did you generally hear from the people who participated?
It ranged. Actually, we're going to cut, I don't know if you're staying the whole time. We covered it at the end, so I don't really want to repeat myself.
We don't want to be a spoiler.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it early on had to do with the area of development that we've kind of mentioned.
Right.
And then it branched off into, you know, people don't want to see quite as much development of close, high-density homes and that sort of thing. They want to preserve, I mean, the unanimous opinion was, we want to preserve what we already have. That was absolutely the main gist of every different topic we covered, kind of boiled back down to that. But there were some specific and individual things that people had ideas on.
Yeah.
Walking trails, bike trails,
Right.
senior center, and things like that.
Right. So some of the things that we heard when we did the surveys and the open house last time, more walkability, and sort of an idea of having a little bit more of an age-friendly community. And then relying on this building and this campus as sort of your community center, if you will, with the park and this opportunity here. I think what we do with the open houses, that when people are attending them is really helpful, is to talk about, what are the existing conditions, what are the things that we need, and where do we need them. It sounds like you have done that. If you feel, though, that going through this process without any additional public input is the way to go, then we can certainly do that. I don't like spending a lot of time and effort doing those open houses if we aren't going to get significant, meaningful input, and if it's not going to be tremendously different. However, if you have 50 people who are engaged, are there other people who haven't been engaged, and would this give them an opportunity to participate in that way?
That was one of the reasons why I asked the question about doing one or two or however many, because one of the feedback things we got was the timing of the meeting we had was from 5 to 7, and some people said, well, if we made it a little bit later or a different day or things of that nature, there was other people that would have engaged with it as well. Or people came late and said, well, I just got off work, I couldn't get here at 5. So that is one of the reasons I figured timing at different times might create different people showing up for things.
Right, and that's the other advantage of having the online platform too, is that if they can't make the time slot, then they have that ability to go online and review information and participate that way. I think that having from the planning perspective and running the open house that way is that we're trying to touch on all of the elements that are important to the community. And also explain and educate about how the plans work, how zoning works, why communities might need housing, why they might want more walkability, and then be thinking about, like, where does that make sense here in this community. So it's a little bit of a, again, like a dialogue between Planning Commission and the community who comes to these meetings.
Now, we're kind of planning, we're going to do the open house thing a lot more. And, so potentially, would we be able to work in, we'll do some open houses that we can then forward the information along. Potentially, you can give us some guidance on what you'd like us to learn from these.
That's exactly what I was suggesting.
So we can hear it
Yep.
directly. That's important, too.
We plan to do many. so,
Yeah, that would be great.
My goal would be a minimum of 2,100 people to give us input, I
That's
think, to
awesome.
get a fair number.
Yeah.
I could be crazy, but I thought we'd get 15 at the town hall, so I've been wrong before, hopefully I'll be wrong again, and we'll get strong turnout.
Well, we'd be happy to support you however is best for you. We can get more creative and come up with other ideas. One of the things that we've done in other places is the idea of a meeting toolkit. So it's a little folder of information with directions, and then that can go to a community member who can take it with them and they can run their own meeting. So that might be something else that you want to think about. If you felt like there were folks that would be interested in doing that, and if you thought that it would get you a more representative feedback. I think that if you maybe give it to the same 50 people who've been participating, then you'll get more of that same feedback, but there might be others out there who feel differently. And so there may be some benefit in having a more broad approach to that, but that's something else that we can do. But we'd be happy to support you if you want to run the open house by coming, by helping you with certain aspects of it. So we could work with Kelly on that too.
Okay.
Just quick on public input number 3, which is up on the screen right there. So right now, the first dollar figure of $3,100 is a project website and an electronic survey. Number 2, the open house, we're talking about substituting or inviting you to attend one of our free open houses, or almost free. And then number 3 is particularly focused on a paper-based survey, because we've got 2 surveys, bullet item 1 and bullet item 3.
Yeah, I think it really was a mistake that really it's online project website, that maybe a better explanation of how those relate, because I also didn't put in the open house portion that there is the virtual component that goes with that, which is included but isn't listed on the bullet point. So.
But I'm thinking that the $2,700 bullet item number 3 wouldn't have maybe I'm reading the board down here, it doesn't have an awful lot of support. We would just print hard copies as an option and have them here at the Township Hall for interested parties. Bullet item number 2 for $5,400. I don't know if Giffords would charge us to attend a free open.
We would.
Okay. That's kind of what I was getting around to.
It's 3 hours of your time.
Right, exactly.
Well, and not to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
To eliminate that $5,400 completely, I mean, if you were to attend, you're also getting not only supplying the information to residents, but collecting it as well.
We collect it, we synthesize it, we summarize all the input.
Right.
It goes into the planning document, it's shared with the planning commission for their review and discussion at the subsequent meetings.
So
that's part of all of that.
Yeah,
right?
I don't really want to lose all of that.
I want to lose some of the price tag.
I know. Yeah. What is it you charge to attend?
Well, I mean, it depends on what we're responsible for doing. So if I'm just coming to a meeting, my hourly rate would be $165, and I can come and spend the couple of hours here. If we're going to be taking documentation and hearing and participating, we might charge a little bit more, just so that we have the ability to summarize and share back with the Planning Commission. But I think we should, and I'm completely fine doing that. I don't need to sell you on any of the open house strategies. I'm happy to support you on all of that. I just want to make sure that the Planning Commission has all the information that they need, and that we're at least engaged with you, so that we're not like third hand trying to help the Planning Commission put together their master plan amendment. So I think that's important. But happy to work with Kelly on refining the budget that's more in alignment with what you all want to do, and then how we can support you to do that.
Well, rather than put you on the spot right here tonight and say how much will it cost, maybe kind of a guidance from all of us on what we're looking for. Like
that would be great.
Eliminating the open house, but yet keeping the collection of the data and putting it out there.
Right. So so you would want to maybe do 2 open houses, one at the beginning of the process, and to get just a full information, I don't want to say information dump, because that sounds so terrible, but get everybody's thoughts out. And then maybe one later, after the Planning Commission's gotten through a working draft.
Yeah.
So maybe part after 4, the last element in there, which would be probably more of the one that you would want us to do, because then we would be preparing information from the Planning Commission. It would be more informational with ability to comment. But maybe the first one is yours, where you're just, here's the thing, we got maps out, we've got comment cards, and we could make it very, very straightforward and easy. It doesn't have to be very involved.
I think we would very much plan, if we were going to do some of it, I would want like 6 minimum opportunities for the public to come and look and see and give us input, just to make sure there's plenty of time. We would do it at various different times, locations, you name it. Just to get, serious input.
Well, and if we can help you with like printing out maps and helping you with like comment cards, and maybe we do even like QR code where someone clicks that with their phone, it takes them to our online platform, and they can answer the questions, and we keep it all kind of in the same spot.
I like that.
But then you've got the materials that you could take them with you and do as many events as you want. They can
Okay,
be here,
excellent.
they can be out in the community. That would be cool.
Would the final wrap up then, open house, right? Rick suggested at least two, an opening for input,
Right.
and then a wrap-up one for output. Is that what is referred to in item number 5, the public hearing and adoption, where you would be actually attending and assisting the planning commission and township board? So that is kind of the wrap-up, the download, is that correct?
No, I think we would do the open house, the final open house on the working draft before the planning commission is finished. So they would say, the plan's done, it's a working draft, we're gonna have an open house, and then the planning commission will hear any of their summaries from that. They'll have a meeting and they'll say, we heard this public input, everybody seems to be great with what we have in here. We're gonna make a recommendation then to the township board to let this plan go out to the communities for that 42-day review period. Then we get all that feedback, and then the public hearing is really like, here, it's to explain to the public at a public meeting, here's what's in this plan. Then we sit aside and they do their public hearing. Then planning commission says, okay, we've heard the public hearing information. We feel like this is a good document, we're done. We're gonna adopt it. And so they could do that. So the public hearing is really a facilitation of, here's what's in the plan, here's how we got here, because there may be as many engagement opportunities as you have, there is always at least one person who comes to the public hearing. I didn't know what we were doing. How come I never heard about this? We're like, oh my gosh, we had like 10 email blasts that went out it doesn't matter. There will always be people who won't know, and they have that opportunity at the public hearing. We always say, we're so glad you're here now. But typically by then, there's not a whole lot that people haven't already heard about. So it shouldn't be that big of a deal. That's not a big, it's really just coming to the meeting and having a summary. Usually it's a presentation, PowerPoint, that can go online as well, so that people who maybe want to decide if they're coming to the meeting, we can have that up before, so they have a chance to see it and then say, no, this is fine. This looks exactly like what we talked about, and we're good.
So it almost sounds to me like we need to tweak what the scope of work is, get that to Jill, and have her come back with something a little bit more in line with what we discussed this evening.
Well, they do have a timeline budget of $18,400 plus the engagement options. If we wanted to work with them, we could vote on the basic budget and then add the engagement options afterwards.
I believe it does say for it not to exceed
I know.
$29,600.
Well,
That's the whole thing, though.
That's
all.
if we do everything, yeah.
Right.
If you do everything. I'm
Yeah.
just talking about this part, the 18.4 plus the engagement options. We just do the 18.4 and then see how we tweak the others. Does that make sense, Kelly?
Yeah, that would be fine. So approving the base cost for the master plan update, and then bringing back the public engagement portion of it to the next meeting.
Yeah.
We could do that, or we could just postpone it this evening and bring it back as a complete package at the next meeting.
What does 18.4 get you going on?
That gets us going on number 1, the background research survey, summary of existing conditions. We can start the online website, and we can meet with the planning commission as item number 2. And that way we're.
So basically, it's everything but number 3.
Well,
It would be
starting
everything
the
on our
online survey
proposal
is
except
including
number 3 if you go with the base 18.4.
Right, and we're going to blend in the 3 bullet points. We're going to blend them so that they're really just 2. One is the online project website, and survey, and then the open house with the virtual component. And then 3, the 3rd bullet, that survey kind of goes away because it's sort of included in the first bullet point when we talk about survey questions. So taking that out, that 2,700, we can probably work on the materials that you would need for your open house, where we talk about the maps and the comment cards, and then the ability to QR codes and all that. I'm sure that will cover that. But we can still bring this back if that's helpful.
And before we mention anything, Joe, do you have any questions or comments on anything you've heard on this particular discussion?
No, I don't have any comments. I know that White Lake went through it. I am on the planning commission, and what she is suggesting is quite similar to the process that we did, and for the same reasons, you want to get as many people as possible. So, yeah,
okay.
Work out the details.
Okay, any further questions or comments from anybody? With that, I will entertain any motion anyone has regarding item number 3.
You want to make a motion?
Well, I think we have 2 ways to go. We have the opportunity to do an engagement based on the budget of 18.4 and then add on the others afterwards, or we can table it and just get it all cleaned up in one shot. So I think I would prefer to table at this point and get it all done in one shot.
I differ. I want to get it going.
Yep.
The 18.4 is going to get spent today, tomorrow, next week. It's going to get spent, unless we can work on that, but that's just the core services. She's already going to get started on pulling together materials, tapping into some online survey, getting that started. I'd like to get, because the timeline here is 12 to 13 months. That's a long way out, and if we table it for another month, so that's just IMHO.
So basically, you're saying, we're gonna put her on the starting line anyway, we might as well put her on the starting line now, and then feed her the rest of the stuff as we figure it out.
That's what I'm thinking.
I'm good with that.
That makes sense.
Because it won't come back higher than what we've already given you. Unless we add on a lot more stuff, but we're not doing that, so.
Okay.
My one concern would be to make sure, so this limited market assessment and consumer spending survey and all that kind of good stuff cover, a very broad area as
Right.
opposed to one specific area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Generally, probably most of the township.
So, all right, I'll move to approve the proposal of River Webster to update the township master plan with the base rate of 18,400 with the engagement options to be decided at a later date.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion. I have a second. I think we ought to do a roll call here.
Okay, Walker,
Yes.
Ryber,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Deaton, yes, Susie,
Yes.
Hobarder,
Yes.
Spiher.
Yes. Okay. Motion carried.
All right. Well,
Thank
then
you, and
that's
we'll
good.
kind of
We
get
will
together and
work on the-
see, we'll tweak our community engagement options and see what we can come up with.
I think that'll be really cool. It's going to be a good project.
Let's go to work.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you
Thank
all
you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you all. It was nice to.
Look forward to working with you.
Absolutely, us too.
Okay, with that, we will move on to agenda item number 4. This is a request for the introduction of proposed ordinance number Z-25-03 and to set the meeting date for considering the proposed ordinance for adoption before the Township Board on Monday, March 3rd of 2025. The request for zoning map amendment involves parcel number 471109300046, consisting of 7.44 acres located on the east side of Latson Road between Beck Road and the CSX rail line. The property is requested to be rezoned from Country Estates CE to Interchange Commercial Planned Unit Development, ICPUD.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a due process procedural step. The Charter Township Act requires that the Township Board first introduce an ordinance before that it can be adopted. This is a proposed rezoning that was heard before the Planning Commission on December 9th and before Livingston County on January 14th. Therefore, it is ready for board consideration. So basically, the step tonight is just to introduce it and then set it for a future meeting date, which at this point is recommended for March 3rd, 2025.
Okay, thank you. And just to, in case there's any confusion at home or out there, this is the small PUD area that's being discussed, not the larger PUD that there's been some questions raised on.
Separate PUD.
This is
a separate PUD.
This is a separate item. Same owner, separate item.
That is correct.
And this vote tonight is strictly to set the hearing and by no means whether we approve it or not.
Correct. All that you're doing is introducing it and setting the hearing for a future date.
Okay, any further discussion? With that, will this need to be a roll call, or this can be a?
Nope.
Okay, so with that, I will entertain a motion on this item.
Make a motion to go ahead and set the date for the second hearing in front of the Board of Trustees for March 3rd, 2025.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor, please
It does call
indicate.
for a roll call vote.
The ordinance, when it's adopted, requires a roll call vote.
This does not?
Correct.
Okay.
It was just a note for when it gets to you for adoption, you will need to do a roll call vote.
Okay.
Okay. So with that, all those in favor, please indicate by signifying aye.
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 Opposed, the same? Okay, motion carried. Next up, action item number 5. This is a consideration of a request to ratify approval of a revised proposal from Toshiba to return existing copier printer equipment in accordance with the current lease and purchase new copiers and printers at a decreased cost not to exceed $37,600 with a 36-month fixed-rate monthly maintenance service fee of $576.96 from General Fund, General Government, Equipment, Software Maintenance Fund, number 101-261-751-000.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is just ratification of an approval that was made at the last meeting to move forward with Toshiba for the replacement of the township printers and copiers. As a result of a final walkthrough by the vendor, we identified some efficiencies in the contract, which lowered the cost. And I just thought, because when the board approved it, you approved a static amount. We approved the 37.6. It is less than that. So I thought it was just a good idea to have the board ratify that so that the record is clear that the board approved the amount that is the final amount.
And just as an added bit of information, in '24 with the overages and whatnot that we had been paying, we paid $566.45 a month for our copies. So that'll be, this amount we're locking into for 3 years is a $10 increase over what we paid in 2024. So I do feel that's a pretty good deal. And our lease payment was $17.23 a month. We're buying outright, but if we would have leased at 63 months, that equates to about $596.83 a month. So there's a pretty significant savings to the township on this project, call it. So with that, any questions?
Janine, do you have what you need in this proposal? Does it cover your needs?
I do. Yep. And the toner, as you well know, is very expensive, and that's mostly the cost. We don't have to pay for cartridges. This is going to include any total replacements that are needed at any given time. We do a lot of printing here, so.
About 30,000 sheets a month. And one thing,
Wow, a couple trees.
there was a little bit of confusion. There's a 3-day period for Janine. There is a printer that's very specific to her ballot, not ballots, voter ID cards.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Didn't mean to give you a heart attack.
Yeah.
Janine's voter ID cards require a very specific printer. So she gets a 3-day test run of only that specific printer. And if she doesn't like it, Toshiba will take it back and bring her out whatever she wants, no charge. So it's a little protection to make Janine comfortable that we're meeting our state-required obligations.
Sounds great.
And with that,
Good job.
I will entertain a motion.
I move to to ratify the approval of the revised proposal from Toshiba.
Support.
All right, I have a motion, I have support. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same? Motion carried. Okay. Agenda item, action item number 6. And this is the consideration of approval for elected official participation in the Michigan Township Association Annual Conference occurring in Grand Rapids, Michigan from March 31st through April 3rd of 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our current per diem policy does require that board approve attendance at multi-day conferences. The Michigan Township Association Conference is a multi-day conference in Grand Rapids. In the past, the township has always encouraged trustees and elected officials to attend these educational opportunities. It makes you better board members when you understand the processes and the rules associated with what we do. So if the board is so inclined, I'm just seeking approval for payment of per diems for attendance at this event.
Do we have a count of how many trustees want to go and for how long?
We do currently. I have 2 trustees that would like to go to the full conference, one that would like to go to a single day, and then one official that wants to attend the conference as well.
And Candy's talking about one
I'm just
day.
gonna go one day.
Maybe another for a single day.
Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
I have a
Stand by.
question. Sorry. So if we approve it, Candy's thinking about going for one day. So is that in our heads what we're also approving is that per diem as well?
Well, that's a one day, but, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that's
Yeah,
included.
she's
covered.
included.
Okay.
And I mean, if the board wants to limit, that is certainly something that we can do. I worded it as such that anyone who is interested in attending, the board is approving a per diem for your attendance, but if there's a desire to limit it to the number of people, we can also consider that.
No, I'm not looking to do that.
No.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that if she registers, that we're voting in advance to approve that.
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Thorough was good.
Didn't catch the further discussion. So, okay, and with that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carried. Action item number 7 is a request for review and consideration for approval to repeal the existing per diem policy amended on May 18th of 2020 and to approve the new trustee appointed official compensation policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is something we talked about at the last meeting. The per diem policy that is currently in place was last adopted in, I think it was 2020.
2020.
And it's a simple 2-page document that sort of grew organically and frankly leaves more questions than answers as it relates to how do we handle payment of per diems for our elected and appointed officials. So I did reach out and look across the internet for examples of other compensation policies, and I did find some helpful guidance in other communities, and as such prepared a new policy to address questions of trustee and appointed official compensation. A lot of this is the same as our current policy. Probably the biggest change is the creation of a stipend, which is a new concept, and what it does is it allows us to tailor how much is spent sending an elected or appointed official to an event based on the amount of time that they're spent at the event. So, for example, if someone attends a 1-hour workshop somewhere, that they're not being paid the full per diem for something that takes less time than, say, an 8-hour full day workshop. It doesn't make sense to me that it would be the same amount no matter how long you spend in an event. So this is just attempting to clarify that, create that stipend option, which is really geared towards your educational opportunities or more informal meetings. And then also put in forth some standards for approval, so when and how things get approved, and then how you submit for payment after the fact. So I'm open to any feedback. I know I put a lot into this, and it's your first time looking at it, so if you want changes, that's fine. If you're happy with it the way it is, we can also approve it this evening.
So this came down from the admin committee, and Kelly put a tremendous amount of time into it, and I think really did come up with a plan that really addresses all the various opportunities, things that trustees would have to participate in or might like to participate in. I think it's she really did spend a lot of time and did research. I think it's much more thorough and eliminates question.
Yeah, it gets rid of some of the gray areas, and that's very much appreciated. Thank you, Kelly and the admin staff for taking the time to do this, put this together.
You're welcome. I think it'll make it easier for everyone moving forward, staff included, to know what the process is for payment.
Well, and it's great because people know what they're getting into, and then it doesn't put staff in an awkward spot either.
Correct.
So. Clarification is good.
Yep.
Okay, any further discussion?
I have a question. It says not including drive time. What if your drive time is an hour each way?
So I didn't include drive time because we do pay mileage. All officials are eligible for a mileage reimbursement. So
out of Livingston County.
Outside of Livingston County, correct. So if you're driving to Lansing for a class, you would get your stipend while you were at the class, and then you would be reimbursed mileage for the wear and tear in your vehicle. But that is something we can look to include if we want to. The only instance in here where there would be an eligible stipend would be for a day that you're driving ahead of the class. So let's say you had a class tomorrow morning at 6 a.m.
Right.
and you were going up the day before to attend that class the next day. We would in that instance pay a stipend for your drive time. That's in our current policy. So I'm open to suggestions on that if we want to include drive time or not.
I'm just saying if, for example, SEMCOG has their main office in downtown Detroit, that, rush hour traffic, if you go down there for like an afternoon 2-hour meeting or hour and a half meeting and you're driving back, it's rush hour traffic, now you're an hour and a half in your car coming back, right? It is outside of Livingston County, but it's not like going up to Carnegie Library, for example, for a meeting.
Correct.
So round trip would be almost as long as the meeting.
Right.
And that's kind of like, do we put a bubble with regard to drive time? If you
The bubble is Livingston County, so outside of that.
Or do we look at paying the stipend and removing the mileage?
For drive time?
For drive time. I mean,
So that would-
obviously
we'd
the
have to-
stipend's going to be higher than the mileage reimbursement.
Yeah, we'd have to amend we do have a travel and mileage policy.
Oh, we do,
So we'd
don't
have
we?
to follow up with an amendment to that, but we could do that.
I think
Food for thought.
for a framework, this is a great start.
It is a great
And
start.
Todd does make a valid point.
Yeah.
So I think that's, I don't think that we're voting to approve this, it's a draft right now.
Correct.
It's okay.
Yeah, this is a discussion item.
Yeah, I think.
That's
it's a
actually an
great-
action item, but
great
it's
start.
okay to not
Oh.
take action on an action item.
Right?
I think that point needs possibly a little revision before I would be comfortable approving it, but it is, like they're saying, a great start.
Okay.
And I appreciate the time you've put
Of
into
course.
this.
So that change would just be simply to add in that drive time for events outside of Livingston County would be included in the calculation
For
as it
stipend,
relates to
yep.
stipend.
I
Well, if
agree.
you're getting paid drive time and mileage, it seems like it's double pay though, almost in
isn't.
a way.
It's not.
The mileage is minimal.
It's not
77
double
cents
pay
a
with the
mile, I
wear and
think.
tear. No, I take your car, I'll be fine not taking mine.
It's 70 cents a mile.
70 cents a mile.
Yeah, it's,
Nobody
that's
drives my car.
minimal.
I think the
it's-
federal rate's higher than that. Is it 76.5?
We do it at the federal rate.
It's for wear and tear on your vehicle, maintenance, oil changes, yada, yada, yada.
I'm not against keeping the mileage, yeah, I
No.
just threw that out there.
And I agree with drive time, any distance, yeah.
Yeah.
Should be, yeah.
If it's nearby, no. But if it's a little road trip, that makes sense.
And how many of those we actually have and how far do we actually go, so.
Right.
Grand
Not many.
Rapids or Detroit?
Right.
I'm glad I don't go to Detroit meetings.
Okay, so I can make that amendment and bring it back to the next meeting,
Or we can just include it now and
or you could do that now.
be done with this one.
Given that this was an action item, should we entertain a motion?
What is the motion going to read?
If you are not prepared to take action, I would table the amendment, or the item for further review.
Okay, so we're making a motion to table for further review?
Or-
I'll make that
Can.
motion.
Or you can make a motion to adopt with the change of including drive time outside Livingston County in the calculation for stipend or per diem. Not per diem, but for stipend.
Would it still need to come before us, Joe, for any language changes, given that this is an official policy?
I would suggest it should, yes.
So stick with tabling.
Well, you could do like what Mr. Susi says, is adopt that policy right now or table it and come back with language.
If we adopt without the mileage for now, does the rest of the policy go into effect now or not until?
The
we're ready for the
mileage
final
or the time driving.
Well,
We're
the
not
stipend versus the per diem, that would all be effective now?
Yes, and then you could always come back and amend it, revise it at another meeting. But if there's a meeting, Detroit or Grand Rapids, until that's revised, there wouldn't be a stipend for the time driving.
Well,
Okay.
I don't know that we have anything before the next board meeting that's distance training. Now, I might be wrong, I don't know the SEMCOG meetings, but I don't see a problem tabling it until the next meeting because then we have time to get it into the language and just do it outright.
I'm okay with that, and the more I'm thinking about this as well, thinking about SEMCOG, the per diem itself is for an official meeting. So under the way this is currently written, if you drove to SEMCOG for an official meeting as the SEMCOG representative, you would be eligible for a per diem, but not a mileage reimbursement. So the switch between the per diem and the stipend is really more educational. So the formal meetings where you're a voting member at or you're representing this board at is per diem pay. And if that is a meeting that is in Detroit or in Lansing, you would only be eligible for the per diem amount. It would be the full per diem amount, regardless of the length of time that meeting took, versus an educational opportunity or a public engagement opportunity those types of things would be the stipend.
And
So,
those still do occur in Detroit at times.
correct. So, and I guess maybe I'm seeking a little clarification here. Did you want to add something to the per diem as it relates to drive time? Or are you okay with the full per diem, including your drive time in the event of a meeting in Detroit? But the stipend being something separate that would have drive time. Does that make sense?
Sort of, maybe, almost.
I thought it was mileage outside Livingston County,
Mileage.
regardless.
Yeah.
No?
You get paid mileage outside Livingston County regardless.
Right.
But the per diem is just, it's a per day. This is the full pay per diem. Any meeting that you participate in as a voting member is eligible for the full per diem.
So if we use the SEMCOG example for Detroit, Todd would have the per diem plus mileage.
Correct.
Okay,
That's what I was asking.
I thought that was getting a little confusing, but.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about, like an engagement meeting where you go for like an hour and 45 minutes to SEMCOG's office. So that would,
An educational one.
That would be a
We're
stipend.
talking about an educational one.
That would be a stipend.
That'd be a stipend. It's an educational one. If it's a official voting meeting, which they have 3, I think, a year, right?
yeah.
Correct.
Then those would be per diem plus mileage. The educational one that you want to do would be a stipend plus mileage. And we're adding drive time,
Okay.
or want to have.
All of it gets approved prior to, just like we did tonight. Everything's going to be approved by the admin board before.
Well, it'll pretty much be spelled out.
Right in here, so it's
But it
automatic.
says in there what you do have to have
Alright.
pre-approval for.
Yeah, so it's only the stipend events that are subject to administrative committee review and approval.
Right.
Multi-day events, this board has to approve it, so the admin committee can approve a single day or a single event. The only exception to that in the policy, as written, is for staff meetings that staff regularly calls. We have pre-application meetings. So those types of meetings where staff is engaging and inviting and asking trustees or officials to attend, those would not need pre-approval by the admin committee.
Are we going to move to push this out until the next meeting then?
I would rather just approve it the way it is with adding the drive time to it and be done with it, so we don't have to keep kicking this can down the road, or, we got other things to worry about.
That makes sense.
Okay.
It's a simple thing to add
Yep.
Okay.
to the stipend portion.
Okay. I move to approve the trustee appointed official compensation policy as of February 3rd, 2025, with the amendment of adding drive time for any event outside of Livingston County.
I second.
To the stipend.
To the
To
stipend.
the stipend.
Okay, I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same? Motion carried. Next up is a discussion item, number 8, and this is a discussion regarding infrastructure improvements to the township server.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. So this is a memo that was prepared by our IT Director, Adam Van Tassel. I'm just wanting to give the board a heads up that we are reaching kind of a critical point in the township server where we're starting to run out of storage space. We had hoped to solve some of that issue by moving to the BSNA online version of software. We've been holding off on that due to some issues we've been hearing from our cohorts and other communities. So as a result of that, you will likely be seeing at a future meeting some items in your packet requesting your support and approval to create more space on the township server and to do some steps towards making upgrades to this township security and server system.
It's not going to happen overnight, but we're going to have to actually do some significant upgrading to our technology infrastructure. We haven't done a ton. It's maybe been pushed on the back burner for a while, and it's time to address it moving forward. So this is just hey, just so you know.
Yeah.
It may not be next
It's
meeting,
coming.
might be 6 months, but
It's coming.
at some point, we will have to address upgrading our IT.
And if anyone has any questions or wants to dive deeper into the issues that we're seeing, I would recommend reaching out to Adam. He's happy to sit down and go through kind of where we're at and what we think next steps are with anybody if they're interested.
I have a question. In the near future, we're going to be approving a budget. And I know that there are line items in the budget for IT and infrastructure improvements and maintenance. Is this cost of this project something we don't know what that is, so we're going to have to probably alter the budget to cover this cost and move money from A to B?
I think you're gonna see a number in the budget that we're gonna sort of pick out of the cloud a little bit. Here's what we think, hopefully this is gonna cost, but there is a potential that that budget item will need to be amended up or down once we further refine what it is we're going to need to do.
It's definitely going to be significantly higher than the current budget number. However, we won't know exactly, but I think Adam will have a pretty solid idea in our vendor. So, yeah, just be prepared that, yes, you will see the line item for that in the budget will be significantly higher for this year, and that is why. It'll be almost a redo. An upgrade is not we've done upgrades in the past. This is more of a redo.
Yikes.
Or add on to, maybe on.
Okay.
Basically, we need more memory.
It's not easy.
We're out of storage memory.
Okay.
So
Something made to last 5 years. We're on year 8.
Hey, we saved a little.
Yeah, we've definitely reached the useful life and need to look at making some upgrades and potentially going a step farther and just making sure that everything is we have the most robust security we can within a fiscally responsible way.
Well, and like Kelly had mentioned, one of the big keys here is the BSNA software. We approved it 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more, to switch to their online, which would have unloaded a lot of information from the server, but it's not going well with other municipalities, so now we know we're going to stall that even longer, so we have to act on this now.
the other thing, though, it isn't just memory we're talking about. We're talking about new servers, potentially new firewalls, just a general upgrading of the system. Any questions? Further comments? Okay. So that was discussion item number 8. On to discussion item number 9, which is just some feedback from the January 22nd Town Hall open house meeting. And in the packet was a nice summary that Trustee Susie put together that covered some of the ideas that were discussed. I'll just say that I know I mentioned earlier we had 50 people, so that was spectacular, far exceeding any expectations I had. And I think it was it was a discussion. We weren't talking at the people discussed with us, and we tried to clarify as best we could what has been happening. I think it was a very productive discussion, and we had a nice sampling of the township, people from many different areas. The one thing that I did is for the sign-in, we didn't ask anyone's name. We want everyone to feel very free to speak openly with whatever ideas they want and not worried that somebody won't like that idea. But we did have them put where they were from, how long they've lived here, and then where of all the places they've lived, what their favorite place was. And almost every single one, their favorite place was Genoa Township. So that's awesome. And that's what we want to stay that way. So we will keep doing these. I'm shooting for sometime in March to do number 2. And if the demand stays strong, we'll keep doing them, every 6 weeks, every other month, whatever the demand is there for. It's important to us that you tell us what you're looking for. And it's a great opportunity, instead of us sitting up here talking to you, we just have a discussion. So I
Have you
found it
picked
to
a
be
date
very
in March
valuable.
yet? Have you picked a date in March yet?
I have not.
You haven't talked to Janine yet?
Yes. Yeah. We'll coordinate up with everybody. Hopefully, we can get a different bunch there the next time. Sometime around tax bill time, we'll, probably have Robin sit in on one if she wants.
That might be a great event to double up with the Big Red Barrel on.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. Could be, absolutely. We'll have Janine come when there's election items that she would like to really get some information out there on. And we have some other trustees that would like to participate. So I'll be the only one you're stuck with on a regular basis. So yeah, with that, does anyone else prefer to provide any information?
Well, I know we all thought it was very good, and it worked out well. I just want to point out if you ever have a short, we should have it's good to have 3 people there. If you're ever short, I'm always interested in doing it again. I thought it was great.
Excellent.
Yeah, it was fun. Most of their angle was about that development. That's what most everybody wanted to talk about.
Early on, there was some, yeah. But it definitely hit a broad
Senior
range.
center information, and it was nice. It was a good time.
Yeah, we got some really good input.
To kind of mention bullet point number 6 about discuss that our communication system as a pull system rather than having a push system. I've been in communication with the developer of the app for Brighton and for Howell, and the aforementioned price of $5,400. I've asked him to lower the price, and he came down to $4,800. And I'm curious if anyone here has downloaded either the Brighton or the Howell apps and lived with them for a little bit.
I have. I did. And within 2 minutes of I did the Howell and the Brighton both. I was getting notifications about construction projects that were going to start that same day, right on Grand River by the 96 overpass or Chalice Road, somewhere around there. So, all you had to do is select notify, and it pushes the information out there. Just my question on the push, and it's a great feature. I think it's what sells it, is that, who is pushing it? Who decides what to push, and who pushes the button to push it out, is my question.
I'll ask.
Who's the pusher?
Yeah, who's the
pusher?
I'll ask. But that could be, we talked about how do we fill the room up with people that are curious about the master plan revision. That could be one additional means of communication with regard to meetings and opportunities.
I will admit, I said at the last meeting I would download one of them. I did not. But I wrote it down this time, so I will do it.
Okay.
Guilty as charged. Thank you. Anyone else with any questions or comments? And we can just open that up to general, we'll close item number 9 and just go to a general board comments discussion.
Do we have any updates from any of the trustees on any of the boards that they're sitting on?
There is going to be a special additional meeting of the Planning Commission here in the near future. It's for the same reason they had the first, well, since I've been on the board, they had 2 development projects they wanted to discuss, and they wanted to keep the 2 developers out of each other's hair. So there is going to be an additional Planning Commission meeting a little bit later on in February. There'll be 2 in February.
Candy, do you have anything from Parks and Rec? Anything exciting happening?
They hired a new deputy director.
You guys found it to be valuable.
They are still working on their FMLA policy. They want to have cutting edge, I guess you might say. They want to try, they're worried about retention of their staff with that. They got money from the millage. They're thrilled about that.
I bet.
Yes.
I did, just so you know, we had discussed it internally when we were going through this per diem and stipend policy. I sent an email to Tim Church suggesting, now that they have the millage increase, that they as a board pay the per diem to their board members. And so I kind of sent them the structure that M. Hogg and Janelle Osceola use, where the chairman and the secretary get paid extra than the other trustees, and said if this is something you want to consider, to reach out to me if he wanted to see any more information.
Yeah, what did he say?
I just sent it today.
Oh,
So I
okay,
have not
yeah.
heard back.
Yeah, I was gonna bring it up with him too. I'd heard it, you were going to.
Well,
Yeah.
please do. Please feel free to
think I will.
follow up Robin's communication.
I think I will.
Well, and now that they have the millage rate, it is appropriate.
Oh,
They
yeah.
can self-fund this. So.
All of our other boards do
They do.
pay their members themselves. We don't have to contribute to that.
Any that have authority.
And traditionally, they
Yes.
never had, right?
No, and they've never had the millage, and we've just always paid it.
Okay.
Just like we pay to attend SEMCOG.
I will,
That's all right.
I will reach out to him.
Good.
Because we just did have a meeting last
Right.
week.
Oh, okay.
They postponed it for me because it was the same night as ours.
Oh,
So they waited a week for me. It was
that's
nice.
good.
Okay.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I thanked them.
Hey, for what it's worth, Attorney Joe stated that he works on the planning commission in White Lake, and White Lake has an app run by the same people as Brighton and Howard,
Okay.
just for gee whiz.
And you like it?
Yes, and I wish we would have had it when we did our master plan.
Okay.
Because this seems to be more effective in notifying everybody. I mean, we got almost 15% returns on our like postcards and stuff like that, which was pretty amazing.
Excellent.
But pushing it would have been
Okay.
more better.
15% on postcards, huh?
More bad.
Almost,
See, that
almost
really surprises
15%.
Okay.
Wow.
So Todd, is the $4,800, is that a one-time fee or is that like annually?
Annual.
And they provide the content?
I'm gonna get more details.
I think not.
I'm gonna find out who the pusher needs to be.
Are you offering to be a pusher?
Just general comment. Today, we did vote to move the item to the March 3rd for the second viewing of the zoning proposal. What I missed the deadline in before we voted there was to make a comment / question. Have we heard back from Foster Swift on the validity?
This is actually remember, this is a separate PUD from that one.
Correct. Sorry about that, you did.
So I can answer that question. I did get an email just before I stepped into this meeting from them. There is an attachment to the email. It is his opinion, but I have not had a chance to review it yet, so.
Okay. Second question, if the planning commission has already rejected the 7.44 acre PUD and the Livingston County Road Commission, or Livingston County has already rejected it, why is it, I guess, what are we going to look at? Are we going to just look at it and say, well, it got rejected twice, what do you guys want to do?
So their role in the process is making a recommendation to this board. So what happened at the planning commission, both our planning commission and county planning commission, is them making a recommendation for you to consider as part of your final decision on that particular request. So it is not finished until the township board makes a decision. There have been instances where a planning commission has recommended no, and a board has decided to approve it. So it's not done until this body makes a final decision.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
But it's been voted no twice.
It's been recommended for denial by the planning commission and recommended for denial by the Livingston County Planning. And each of them had their reasons, and as part of the next, when that item is before you, you will have a full record, including the reasons why they are recommending denial for you to consider.
Pretty much today was procedural.
It's kind of what I thought, but Kelly answered my question.
Yep.
There has been precedence in the past where even though a recommendation for denial, the board still approved.
Or recommendation.
Or-
And vice versa?
Or vice
the
versa.
opposite.
Okay. Yeah, it's, the final call rests with this board, right here. They're simply making recommendations.
Right.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay then.
Janine's ready.
Support?
I'll support.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you for coming tonight, everybody. Sorry I missed my goal of shortening it up a hair.
You beat Les.